we have a phenomenal panel that's about to come on because we wanted to be able to talk about the future is now. As you, as business owners, begin to plan for your future, we wanted to make sure that you could hear from the best of the breed from companies and experts in terms of how do you begin to position your companies for the future. So before I bring our panelists on stage, I wanted to give you fair warning is that we could not do justice to the experts that we're bringing on today in the short time that we have to bring them on for you. And so for the remainder of the year, one of the things that we wanted to be able to do is to continue this conversation with other industries as well throughout the year, because we believe it to be actually a worthy topic. So this is kind of the first installment of many conversations. But do you all remember the Jetsons? What do you remember about the Jetsons? Kevin's over here singing the Jetsons song. What I remember about the Jetsons, was the flying cars, and you could do the menu. Remember how they used to eat? You used to push the buttons, and if you look at the the robotic maid, look at how some of those things have come to bear, right? So the other part that kind of inspired this conversation today is also what's happening in terms of the theaters today, and that's Black Panther. If you look at what's happening, and there's a conversation we're going to have a little bit in terms of later, if you look at, any of you have been under a rock and not seen it? How many have seen it? So when I do like this, you understand. Let's go to Wakanda. So part of it is being inspired with, when you look at those things that other than flying into Wakanda, you look at the technology that was used in the Black Panther, some of that's relative, some of that's available today. And I got some of this by talking to some of the experts that I'm about to introduce. So if I can have come to the stage, Dr. Douglas Terrier, Deputy Chief Technologist from NASA. We have NASA in the house. And so I'm real grateful to have Deborah Johnson and Rich Slater came up from Houston to be with us today. Dr. Terrier, if you could come up. I'd also like to bring up Carlotta Tulloch. Carlotta is with the Hilton. She's Vice President of HSM Brand Relations, FF&E Procurement from Hilton. And I'd also like to join the stage Dr. Charles Johnson Bay. He is with Lockheed Martin. He serves as the Director of Engineering and Technology to the Cyber Center of Excellence from Lockheed Martin. And we're going to, the kind of the game plan for today, and if you all would just take a seat for just a moment. Part of the game plan today is to have each of them give you a 5-minute intro of what's happening in their organization. I'm just, most of us just know just on the peripheral what's happening in space exploration. I don't know about you. I just can't contain my excitement of having these kinds of experts come to us firsthand to talk about kind of what's real. But before we do that, you met Riley Sanford earlier, right? And we also have an affiliation with Bowie State University, and I think we have some of their students here today. But I also want to talk about why this is an important conversation. And if I could just show you why.
This 7-year-old kid loves playing with Legos. But have you ever seen a kid this young play with these things?
I'm building a methoxy.
Come again?
I'm building a methoxy.
No idea what he's talking about? You're not alone. This kid is so smart, he's being called the next Einstein. Listen to him when he notices this statue made with copper at the Brooklyn Museum in New York.
I also know the electron configuration for copper, which is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s1, 3d10.
You are 100% correct.
If you want to fact check him, just check it out on Wikipedia under electron configuration. Impressed? Listen to this.
Cyclohexane carboxylic acid.
Trust us, it's for real. His parents, Sherry and Romanio Sr., knew early on their only son was special. Here he is at age 2 discussing chemistry at breakfast.
What atom has 8 electrons?
Oxygen.
All right.
And science isn't his only strength. He's also got perfect pitch.
What's the top note of this chord?
Oh, G.
I've never seen a 7-year-old do stuff like this.
We haven't either.
I don't think that we've come to the full understanding of his level of genius.
So why did I show that to you? Because he's here with us today. Wow. If I could introduce to you Romanio Golphin Jr. Romanio, it's been a while since we've seen each other, correct? So you've been traveling? What have you been doing? Hold the mic, go ahead.
So we've been traveling a lot, and I think my favorite thing was Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories.
Oh, okay.
Or LLNL.
Why was that your favorite?
Because they have a facility called NIF, the National Ignition Facility, and they take 192 lasers, each one maybe this big, and then they take those and they collide them at the hull room in the target chamber, which, by the way, the hull room is made of gold and depleted uranium.
I'm shaking my head like I know what you're talking about.
But it's only the size of a pencil eraser.
So tell me, Romanio, why should other children try to learn about space? Or, I'm sorry, try to learn about science like you? Why should other children try to learn that?
Because we treat science like a language. It's like the language of the universe is science.
Okay, very good. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
And also, for Mr. Smith, I have something.
Oh, well, we gotta make sure we catch him for you, okay?
So, actually, his number was 22. So, we call him Mr. Titanium because element 22 on the periodic table is titanium.
I knew that.
And that's fitting because titanium was very strong.
Excellent, excellent.
But the electron configuration, do you know it?
Well, tell me.
1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d2.
Thank you. Well, you know what? Do you want to hang out with us? I got to get the panel started, but we certainly appreciate you being here. You want to hang out here, or I want to introduce your father. Where's? Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. Is he okay here? No, we're gonna go back. Oh, okay.
All right.
Can I have the mic back?
Sure.
Okay.
Before you leave, Romanio, I didn't make sure we get you on our list of hires. So why don't you contact me? And I would say you could wait about 10 years, but I don't think you need to.
Well, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Romanio Golphin Jr. Thank you, Senior. Thank you very, very much. So you guys are going to be here the rest. Are you going to hang around for a while, right? So you get a chance, the opportunity to meet him for yourself. We just thought that that was appropriate. Do you not think? Yeah. And so that also shows you, like, the world of possibilities. And it shows you about the future. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So I think it's appropriate that we start with Dr. Douglas Terrier to give us our 5-minute introduction. And what we've asked him to basically talk about is what does NASA really do? I know most of you asked that question. What do you really do? And is that changing with the introduction of private commercial space companies. I'm sorry, that is not the. Is that correct? Okay. You once stated, that is right, and I saw his presentation, during a presentation, the World Top Innovator Series, that we now live in a time and place where we have the tools, technology, and knowledge to begin to answer the fundamental questions of how does this universe work, but more importantly, are we alone? Dr. Terrier.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Council for letting us be a part of this very important conversation today. I'm really happy to be here. I should say that I was a little too happy in the Uber ride up from DC. I was going on and about how excited I was and about my excitement to meet Emmett Smith. My driver said you might want to tone that down. But I'm still excited. So the big question, so what is NASA really about? And hopefully most people in the audience are familiar with NASA. I think everybody's kind of aware of what we do. NASA is really fundamentally driven by the most profound basic human questions, the ones that our earliest ancestors looked up at the night sky in amazement and wonder, asked the questions, how does this universe work? And what is our place in it? And are we alone? And that's been really, that's propelled our voyage of discovery and exploration. So NASA utilizes a whole suite of capabilities to do the work that we do. And I want you to start out by making sure you know that NASA is your space agency. So I want to spend a minute to tell you what we do for you, and more importantly, why we need you and the folks in the audience to be successful. So we are responsible for exploring everything from the surface of the Earth to the observable universe, 10 to the 26 kilometers in spatial coordinates, about 14 billion light years in time coordinates. We do that with a suite of capabilities, many of which you've heard of. We have human spaceflight assets. We have robotic autonomous precursors. We have a suite of observatories that look into the distant universe. And each of those, really, you can think of it as exploring a region or a domain in space. Our human capabilities can extend to really the moon and potentially onto Mars, where we're headed now. The robotic precursors do the advanced work, the scouting ahead of us, our autonomous avatars, if you will, into the planets in the solar system. We've explored every planet in the solar system. And then our great observatories explore the farthest reach of the universe. We have two goals. One is to extend the boundaries of that exploration and the knowledge that goes with it. And the second one, which is just as important, is to ensure that the knowledge, the science, the technology that accrues from that enable quality of life, better life right here on Earth, better products, better commerce right here on Earth. So in the first 60 years or so, we've landed men on the moon, we've flown 135 shuttle flights, built the International Space Station, explored every planet in our solar system and beyond, and our great telescopes have looked right back to the beginning of time. But the amazing thing is that the next decades promise it to be even more absolutely, unbelievably amazing in what we're going to learn. So we're now building the first human spacecraft system designed from the outset for interplanetary travel to take humans to the moon and then on to Mars and the other planets. We have a suite of robotic capabilities that we're now designing that will look for specific signs and hopefully determine proof of life on other planets in our own solar system, as well as the observatories that are looking for life beyond. And these capabilities are amazing in themselves, but the thing that I want to impress on you is that the benefit that accrues from the technology that we develop to enable space exploration affects every single aspect of our life. Everything that you've come to take for granted, computers, GPS, our cell phones, a camera in our cell phone, every aspect of your life is touched by the technology investment that we make in NASA. And as we look forward, we're going to need even more incredible technology breakthroughs, diverse ideas, completely new innovative ideas to enable the future that we want to create. That future is not one that NASA, nor is the unbroken line of discovery from our past, one that NASA can do on its own. From the outset, NASA has relied on an incredible team of contractors, some of whom are in this room, and we will need everybody's smart ideas, everybody's innovation to make that future as successful as we intend it to be. You may not, NASA puts about, out of our $20 billion budget, we put about over $16 billion out in contracts. We have a goal for 16% of that to be with small and disadvantaged businesses, and I'm very pleased to say we have exceeded that goal. And the return we get on that is incredible, because that's often where we get the different ideas, the diverse thoughts, the innovation. We pass that on to our contractors like Lockheed Martin, and they do a fantastic job again. In total, we're putting between our primary investments and our contractors about $4 billion into this community. And we get a tremendous return on that. So I'll probably get 5 minutes, so I'll wrap up by saying I cannot overstate how incredibly, how much opportunity exists in the future ahead of us. I cannot overstate how disruptive, how different the future is going to be given the technologies that we're seeing coming online, many in the space of artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and just a host of other things. People like the young man that were up here are going to grow up in a world where they'll be the first generation to live and work among intelligent machines, the first generation to know humanity as a multiplanetary species, and yes, likely the first generation to have the answer to that question definitively, are we alone? It's an incredible future, and on behalf of all the men and women of NASA, I want to invite you to be our partners in creating that future. Thanks.
That's incredible. So get ready. After we do our introductory statements, we are going to open the floor up for questions, and so I hope you're taking copious notes. Next, we have Carletta Tulloch. Okay, I want to make sure I pronounce that correctly. And she's Vice President, as I shared with you, of HSM Brand Relations and FF&E. You have to tell me what that means, procurement from the Hilton. Since the beginning, the hotel industry has constantly evolved and transformed to meeting the changing needs of travelers. While the industry has always been innovative, the recent advancement in technology has capitulated the industry into unprecedented change. I can talk. As the most recognized name in the industry, travelers all over the world have been saying, "Take me to the Hilton," for almost a century. If you could describe the Hilton organization in terms of its functionality, and what are some of the innovative approaches to customer relationships that the Hilton has implemented over the last few years?
Sure, thank you, Sharon, for having me, and good morning, everyone. So Hilton is a company that has 5,200 properties worldwide in 105 countries, and that equates to 856,000 hotel rooms throughout the world. We've got 14 brands, and we've got 71,000 Hilton Honors Reward members, and the list is growing. We're practically opening a new hotel a day. So Hilton's organization, the company, by the way, will turn 100 years next year, so it's a huge accomplishment for us, and I'm so happy to be a proud member of the Hilton family. Hilton and our company is organized by our business unit that supports the different brands that we have. We have luxury, we have full service, we have focus service, and we have all suites brands. Underneath that, all of the business units are aligned. I oversee the FF&E, which stands for Fixtures, Furniture, and Equipment, purchasing, as part of the Hilton Supply Management purchasing arm of the company. We are our own business unit, and we are separate, although aligned with the company. What makes HSM so unique is we not only supply, purchase, and resupply for our Hilton products, we also do it for our competitors. We will buy for a Marriott, for example. We will buy for a Hyatt. We will buy for a restaurant. And that's something that's really unique to Hilton, HSM, and you won't find that with any other in-house purchasing firm like ours. Additionally, we also have an in-house corporate procurement arm. So this is another differentiator for us, because not only do we buy for our hotels, we're also handling all of the contracts for our in-house needs, such as our air travel partners, our corporate credit card partners. All of that, those contracts are all negotiated within HSM. So what I'd also like to tell you about Hilton is that Hilton's mission is to be the most innovative hotel company in the world. And what does that mean to Hilton? We want to use innovation to enable our guests and our team members to have a great experience. The way that we define innovation is not something new that we're going to create, but it's enhancing an existing process, an existing product, or an existing business model that innovation will change. What are we doing at Hilton to do that? Well, as you know, disruptors such as Airbnb have come along, and they have really turned the hospitality industry on its head. What we're doing at Hilton is we're taking innovations such as this. We've developed something that you're going to start seeing rolling out later this year in our full-service hotels. You check into your guest room, and you immediately pair your phone with a little black box that we've developed in a proprietary fashion with a vendor. And you can control the lights in your room through your phone. You can control the television through your phone. And we've got panels on the wall that immediately your personal camera roll photographs become the artwork in your room. How much more technology can you have than that? And how much more personalization can you have? Because our guests are telling us that they want a customized personal experience wherever they are. They no longer want that cookie cutter hotel room that you used to go into and they all look the same. You knew what to expect. You didn't know what city you were in when you woke up. Those days are over, and we're constantly being challenged by our guests to come up with new things. On the building front, it was interesting listening to Emmett. We're really getting into modular construction. Have you all heard about the modular construction industry in the hotel world? Show of hands. So we're partnering with companies that are building our guest rooms in a warehouse in 16 weeks. Every single hotel room is built in a box with within a half-inch tolerance of the specification. They're brought to the site in huge tractor trailers, and we have stacking parties, is what we call them, where the hotel rooms are stacked one on top of the other. This minimizes the construction time by half, at least. And we're really starting to get into that. Initially, when we got into it, the banks were very hesitant to loan money to our owners because they thought it's an unknown, this type of construction. We don't know how it's going to hold up. And now it's taking place all over the world, and it's really getting a lot of press, and you'll probably see that. So that's another area where we're really using technology. We've got an innovation lab within our hotel next to our corporate headquarters. The Innovation Lab is where we showcase some of the great things we're working on. We bring owners in, we showcase them, we test things out, and that speaks to the innovation spirit that Hilton has. We listen to our guests, and that's really what's driving us with the innovation. One of the things I found really interesting about Hilton is, as a new employee, when you start, you're required to take an online course about innovation and what the company philosophy is about it. And they encourage us to come up with new ideas on how to do things, new products, such as Digital Key, which I'm sure you all know. Hilton was the first company to roll out Digital Key in almost 100% of their properties. It's really great. We're also now the first hotel company to have our first hotel in Houston that has Alexa in every single one of the rooms, which I think that's pretty interesting.
That is great.
So in summing it up, Hilton's innovation is really where the forefront is, and our CEO, Chris Nassetta, has challenged us, each and every one of us, to think of Hilton as a startup, which is very unique. Thank you.
That's great. And special thanks to Fred Lona, who's on our board of directors representing the Hilton. I'm glad I'm a Hilton's honors person, and we do have some hotel rooms we will be raffling off later on today. Not that that was a commercial or anything, but I just thought you'd like to know. So thank you. I'm excited, really. I didn't know all of that. And anyway, let's move on. Next we have Dr. Charles Johnson Bay, who's Director of Engineering and Technology, Cyber Center of Excellence for Lockheed Martin. And thank you, Robin Snyder, who's our board member on our board from Lockheed Martin. You know that Lockheed Martin is a global leader delivering a full spectrum of cyber capability supporting the offensive and defensive efforts of our defense and intelligence community customers. What we've asked Dr. Johnson Bay is to talk to us about Lockheed being one of the world's largest defense contract and to briefly describe, particularly for our minority businesses, what those big business areas are, and to define his in particular, the RMS area, and that the demand of protection of private information is at a critical level. The opportunity for breach is more prevalent than ever, especially with technologies such as smart devices, et cetera. But how can access to such a frontier of technology that we've talked about today, being the future is now, be used to our disadvantage, and why is it important to protect it? But the big question is, can we really protect it? You're laughing.
Wow. Can you really protect it? All right, so the answer is yes, right? Yes. for a time, right? And no, right? And because that's that time factor. So when you talk about information and people's information, things that they want to keep private or let out, we have the thing. So how best do you do that? That's a big question. So I'm going to start at the top though, and just first say thank you for inviting me here. Such a pleasure to be here. And that little guy was sort of fantastic, wasn't he? It was a pleasure to me. That's why I shook his hand. Such a pleasure to meet him. And one of the things that we do is Lockheed Martin has a lot of partnerships. So like NASA, we do a lot of work with NASA through our space company. But what I want to do is I want to talk about Lockheed Martin a little bit and then get into some of the cyber questions. And then we're going to talk about the innovation process some. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the science of some things that's going on this weekend. So Lockheed Martin has 4 big business areas. So we're a 100,000 employee global security company. I've been with Lockheed Martin about 14 years. It's been a really great place to work. We have 4 business areas, and depending on sort of what your technology is or how long you've been around this space, you might only know Lockheed Martin from our planes, right? So Lockheed Martin Aero is one of our business areas. They do the F-35, things like that. You can see that wonderful. You talk about technology, integration of technology. It's wonderful to see that work, and it's a lot of smart people in the world. Missiles and fire control is another one of our business areas. Space, as I said, we partner a lot. One of the things when you talk about sending someone to Mars or off Earth, one of the things is, once they get there, they still need to eat, they still need to do some things. So what we look at is the supply chain, right? How do we make sure that they get the food there and back in a safe way? Those kind of things. So when you talk about technology and looking far out, those are things. We talk about this generation, being that generation to explore and have smart machines. When we talk about technology and innovation, those are some of the things that we're talking about. We got to look out and see what we can do. And then the 4th business area is rotary mission systems, or RMS, and that's where I sit. So RMS itself is about a $14 billion, billion with a B, $1 billion in and of itself. We do several things from radars to folks that know Sikorsky helicopters. Sikorsky is a part of RMS. We do materials. We do ships like Littoral Combat Ship. We do a number of things. So when you start looking at technologies and what is needed in the future, and talking about the future is now, some of the things that are of importance. Part of what I do is to look at that technology, look at the innovation, and help fund. So a young man talked about Lawrence Livermore Lab being one of his favorite labs. So what I did in my job just before this was I funded technology in the national labs. Lawrence Livermore was one. I took the tour that he took, which is amazing. You go to a place and it's full of gold, and it all gets down to like this little, like I said, like the head of an eraser. So when you start looking at the innovation and what people need to know and what people need to understand, it really is mind-blowing. And so certainly, again, it's my honor to be here. So one of the things I was asked to talk about in particular was cyber. So my responsibility is I'm the Cyber Center of Excellence lead for the entire RMS business. So you got this $14 billion business, and you talk about information and protection, and we've all seen things where, on YouTube or things like that, where people might take over a car and have it, go over into the bushes and laugh, ha ha ha, yeah, that's kind of funny, until you're dealing with big machines or people's lives and safeties, right? So when you talk about being able to protect that information, that's something that's very important to us. But also I will say, when you look at, so technology and protection is one thing. A lot of people think, when they think cyber, well, I need to protect things that are on my computer or some of my electronic information. But it's more than that as well. As we look at the integration of engineering and biology and health, where we have a lot of people now who are getting, implants, right? So I could have a heart implant or implant into my heart, or I could have a knee, or I could have a cochlear implant. As those things start to happen within the body, and we can monitor and detect those things externally, those are things that need to be protected as well. So how do you protect that, right? So when you start looking at the future, it's one thing to look at sort of my technology, sort of where it is here, but let's look at that overall roadmap and see where things come together. And so I asked that question to Mr. Smith purposefully when I talked about construction and the technology of construction, because construction is one thing today, but what is it going to be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Or when we go to these other planets and we start building buildings, what are those going to look like? And what are the technologies that we could use from those? What are, people going to want to be comfortable? How does that happen, right? So what kind of technologies do we need for that? So, I'm going to mention just a couple things that he talked about. He talked about listening when you're in the space and listening and understanding. So asking how, when, things like that. But I think probably one of the most important things that we also need to do is be able to answer a question. And the one, I think, most important question that as a small business you need to answer is, what is your discriminator? So if you imagine, I'm sure, so I will tell you, I'll speak for myself, and I'm sure you guys are similar, but I'll speak for myself. I will get easily 100 calls over a couple week time frame from folks that said, hey, we've got this, we've got that, and we know you need it because Lockheed Martin's doing everything. And so I'll ask the question, so what is it, right? What's different? What's your discriminator? What technology do you have that we can't find anyplace else? And I will tell you time and time again that proves to be the hardest question for people to answer. So part of what I would, the thing that I would like for you guys to think about is, how do you answer that question? When you're in a space of other IT people, or if you're in a space with cyber people, what do you do? How do you discriminate what you do against others? And then the last thing I'll talk about, well, next to the last thing. I'm still in 5 minutes. I'm doing okay? Okay. I do like to talk a lot. 5 minutes is pretty quick for me. So it's the innovation process. One of the things that Sharon, you and I talked about was a lot of people, they'll have these ideas and then they don't want to share them. Well, I don't want to talk about this because somebody might steal it or somebody might do something with it. And so I'm going to go back to, let's go back to when we were all in school, whether it was high school, I don't care where it is, all in school, and everybody had an assignment to do, right? So everybody had the same assignment, same instructions, all of that, right? But when you saw what your friends turned in and what you turned in, they weren't the same, right? Same instructions, same all that, but they weren't the same. It's the same thing with technology and your ideas. If you can't grow and flourish your ideas, if you just keep it to yourself, I don't know what the difference is between a good idea and no idea if you don't share it, right? And so one of the things that we do in our innovation process is we want to, let's fail quickly. If we're going to fail quick and fail cheap, right? So let's get this idea out. Let's develop a business case around it. Let's talk about it. If the business case doesn't hold, instead of putting $1 million on this thing that we think is great, let's put $5,000 on it to see if we can even develop the business case, if we can sell it or not, right? Let's talk to other people. Let's talk to our partners. Let's talk to our collaborators. Let's see, does it make sense to them? Is it something that's of interest? Would they consider buying it? Is it something that can go on a program of record? Is it are we solving something? Are people trying to pull? Are they pulling a solution? We need it, or are we pushing something on them? So that's one thing, developing ideas, developing a business case, and then demonstrate. So, a lot of folks will have PowerPoints, which are real pretty, right? All that kind of stuff. But can we demonstrate? I'd much rather see things. As I said, I've funded a number of things across the world, actually. But I want to see a demonstration. I don't want to sit and look at PowerPoints all day. Show me something. Show me that the technology readiness level is high. And then can we translate that into something that's real, so that we can all make money and partner and go forth. And then the final thing I'll say is, tomorrow I have the privilege of being on a panel that's going to talk about the science of Black Panther. So for those that saw Black Panther, it's a lot of things that were in that movie that actually starts today, right? I'll say one thing, vibranium is one of the things that's there, but if you do a search on rare earth elements, so you can Google rare earth elements in Africa, you're going to see that there's a lot of rare earth elements that go into a lot of the projects and electronics that we're using today. And that's in Africa, and everybody's trying to get in and mine and invest in that. So that's something that is happening today that, and it's there, but people may not know. So with that, I'll end.
That's great. Absolutely wonderful. Can we get a round of applause?